Hello and welcome to the Eat Right Move podcast. This is episode number 53. My name is Jonathan Beale and joined with, as always, Mr. Lee Samilton. How are you today?
Hello, very good today.
What have you been up to?
Studying, so pretty much back into the flow of my nutritional therapy and building that up. So kind of currently looking into the therapeutic benefits of cinnamon, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, writing my first essay, which I haven't done for a long time. Trying to get used to that is a bit crazy.
Yeah.
How about you? How's your week been?
Yeah, not bad. Just kind of usual fare really. Nothing really major to report. So I guess we'll just get straight into it really.
Cool.
So obviously last week we had the first 26 tips we took from our first 26 podcasts, and today we're going to repeat that and we're going to go kind of the rest of the way and get ourselves up to 52. So
number 27, we're looking at, it was a podcast about when I did my first challenge, which was one of my challenges, which was about having not enough time to train. So we kind of debunked that myth that everybody's got time to train.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be crazy long 3-hour back-to-back class sessions. It doesn't need to be twice a day things. It was pretty much short, intense, 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah, it was 20 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, I did 20 minutes. But I think we just kind of want to make sure.
The fact,
just making sure you're getting at least 2 to 3 sessions in a week will be amazing benefit. They don't have to be long. Just make sure they're the right intensity. Based if your health will allow you to, but pushing it as much as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Next one I think we did was on hydration.
Yep.
Wasn't it? And basically the take-home message from that was drink water. In the simplest way possible.
It was one of my rant moments. There's certain things in life where there's a bit of give and take. You've got to be happy. Things can be in for suit your goal. There could be there's choices you can make, but there's one thing I don't budge on, and that is water. I don't care. It's as essential as breathing. Our body is made up of water. Our body uses water for several of its processes, or more than several of its processes, thousands of its processes. So to not drink it because of things like taste and that, I don't care. You've just got to make sure you get water into your system. Drink water. You can drink around it, so you can have your coffees and your teas, but I'd say baseline, you've got to be getting at least 1.5 litres of just pure water in it.
Definitely.
You don't drink it for taste, you drink it for life.
Yeah. No, agree, totally.
Cool. Then moving on, we looked at, it was basically an update from Eat Right Move and where we are, and this is kind of where we kind of stress what our message is, and it's the message that if you've heard most of the time podcasts, especially in the second half, we kind of use this a lot about understanding the choices you make. And the 3 things we talk about is whatever choice you make should benefit your health, should benefit your goals, and should benefit your happiness. And I'm talking long-term happiness as always. And if you're ticking all those boxes, then you're on to a winner sort of thing. A lot of the time, remember, a lot of things people do out there will benefit maybe 1 or 2. So people that are going on severe calorie restricted diets might be working to your goal, might be giving you a little bit of happiness because you're kind of losing that weight, but you could be totally destroying your long-term health and affecting things like your thyroid function, just to name a few. So what we always say is you can make any decision you want, as long as you kind of tick in those 3 boxes, whether it's exercise, whether it's nutrition, whether it's lifestyle.
No, 100%, definitely. Next one was on exercise. I think take-home message we got from that was around the idea of boredom.
Yeah, it was looking at kind of the details of it was myths. I think it was exercise myths. So we had everything from people doing ab work to lifting girls. Should they be lifting heavy weights? And I think what we did take home from it was kind of what was the plateau myth.
Yes, that was it, the plateau myth. Yeah, so absolutely, at the end of the day, you should be changing your exercise regime pretty regularly anyway. If not just to keep things interesting, but actually to stop that plateau from happening anyway. So really, you know, keep it interesting, keep it fun, keep pushing those limits, push those boundaries, as long as it's not detrimental to your health, you know, stress-wise. Just keep it interesting.
There's a possibility of two types of change. You've got
Yeah.
kind of session by session and
Yeah.
kind of what we call format by format, really. Should we be changing session by session? Is it kind of, when we're looking to mix things up, can it be should it be on that basis?
Well, I mean, really, see, the thing is, my train of thought tends to say stick with something for a while, at least 3 to 4 weeks, and then mix up the format. But research suggests that session by session can be as effective, if not more effective, at creating a change than doing that kind of 3-4 week program style. However, changing session by session is great if you're still doing similar kinds of exercises, because you still need that ability to track and know that you're heading in the right direction. Going in and doing a different set of exercises every session for 4 weeks, you're not going to know whether you've progressed or how you've progressed. So really, it's kind of down to you to decide that.
I think it's like you say, it could be small subtle changes, but it's within the scope of the program, really.
Exactly, yeah. So, you know, going up on weight or increasing reps or something, but not necessarily wholesale changing the program.
Because that's the other thing, if you change too much, you can't track whether, I find, in terms of progression from one exercise to the next. So if you're still trying to learn to do a squat and you kind of change the format up, and you're kind of still stuck on doing that basic squat, it might not be true. You might be able to progress harder if you were to do something similar.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you're doing if you're doing whole body workouts and you're picking maybe one exercise per body group, and you go in on Monday and you do squats, and then you go in on Wednesday and you do lunges, and then you go in on Friday and you do step ups, and then the next week you go in on Monday and you do a leg press. There's no way to track progress by doing that. So you've got to keep some kind of consistency to it, so you can actually see whether you're progressing, if your technique's improving, if you're lifting more, if you're getting anything out of it, really. So that's my thought process behind it.
In podcast number 31, it was kind of around the summer, so we started to do the holiday podcast, so looking at kind of people coming to us kind of wanting to know what's the best way to get in shape for the holiday, and kind of the take-home message that we got from that was about there's no short-term fix. It's kind of you're in it for the long game, so kind of making deciding 2 weeks out that you're going to go on holiday, you want to try and get into that bikini body. The extreme things you're going to have to do is going to put a stress on the body. And
you're going to feel pretty rubbish on your holiday, to be honest.
And then when you're coming back off your holiday, you're going to need to do a whole lot of maintenance done, do all that severe pressure you've got on. So if you kind of want to start thinking about your summer holiday, so your next summer holiday beach body, start thinking about it now. And I mean now, like in this moment. And planning and building to it and kind of moving on from it is the best decision you will make.
Absolutely. Next podcast was a challenge, wasn't it? We both did the Uri Move Breakfast Challenge, which was one where we had to, for 30 days, have a breakfast different to what is considered breakfast food. And it was fun, wasn't it? We came out with some pretty weird and wonderful things.
I think we hit the... I think it was about 45 different recipes we came up with. And they're kind of, there was no toast, there was no wheat-based cereals. We didn't do eggs as well, because the actual challenge came from someone that had an egg intolerance. So they kind of stumbled, like every healthy breakfast that is recommended, kind of now is egg-based, and eggs are not for everyone. So whether it's an allergy or whether it's taste, so trying to learn, and so we were following those guidelines.
And the take home from it was essentially that there is no such thing as breakfast food.
No,
really. There's a tendency for people to make associations, and the associations are that cereal and toast and stuff like that are breakfast foods, when actually a meal is a meal. Doesn't matter what time of day you consume it. You know, a shift worker isn't going to have cereal at 7 o'clock in the morning if that's when they get home from work. You know, they're going to have a dinner. So it doesn't really matter what time of day you eat certain foods.
No, it's one of the big. It's actually more psychological than it is actually implementable. A lot of people, when they break that whole mental focus that breakfast food isn't cereal toast, and they can start having things like meat for breakfast, they can have a salad for breakfast, they can have curry for breakfast. So, I actually enjoyed, it was one of my favourite ones, was designing what I called a breakfast curry to just appeal to people, but really it was the same base curry, maybe not as strong as something I'd have later in the day, just to sort of not overpower my taste buds, but still good enough to actually give me the nutrients to kind of fire me up for the day.
Yeah.
And I definitely felt more satiated by doing this, and I think that's the interesting thing. When you kind of break down the carb-heavy breakfast, you realise that focusing more on protein and fat sources first thing in the morning just gives you that longevity in your day, and
you don't get sluggish, do you? That's the thing. Carbs, we all know that after you've had a carb-heavy meal, about an hour or two later, you're falling asleep. So it makes absolutely no sense to have that for breakfast, you know. But anyway.
We did a
holiday-based one, is it next?
I think
Survive Your Holiday.
Yeah, we did a couple of kind of goal-based podcasts kind of around that time. So we did a wedding one and we did a holiday one. Yeah. And I think the one thing that a holiday normally often does is kind of breaks routine. And
people go away and it's like, oh, I've got all-inclusive, so I'm going to eat everything that they can put in front of me. And I'm going to drink myself into oblivion because it's holiday.
And then we often say that most people end up trying to recover from a holiday.
You need a holiday for your holiday, yeah.
And the main cause of that is kind of the abuse you put on your body while you're away. We're not asking you to have fun, we're not asking you to be unrealistic, but we're asking that holiday should be a continuation of supporting your health as much as you can. While still enjoying the food that's available, and even you can still enjoy the alcohol and the drink, but you've just got to be a little bit more wiser with it, and just how it's going to affect your body, and kind of know that maybe sometimes what you drink can influence what you choose to eat and things like that. So you kind of pick a side really with it. So just definitely focus on more of a continuation through anything in life. So your birthday, your Christmas, your holidays should just be part of a lifestyle that you develop and you build to. So we're not asking that whenever you make a change up kind of in the beginning that it's going to be harder to sort of continue, but what you should be building to is something that you can partake long term without any hesitation.
Yeah, definitely. That's good. Next one, I can't remember what this one was about.
Well, I think that we were talking about individualisation.
Why were we talking about individualisation?
I can't remember what the 34th podcast was.
No.
But it's I think it could be through anything. I think
the idea is basically when we say individualisation, everybody's different. Okay. Now, what that means is not only mentally, not only physically and physiologically, the processes that go on inside the body, but everything else around it too. So no matter what you do, you've got to experiment and you've got to figure out what the best option is for you. That isn't necessarily what your mate's going to be doing or has found in a book or in a magazine or watched on telly or something like that. I'm not saying you shouldn't give it a go, but you've got to be mindful of the fact that if it doesn't work for you, don't do it. And it's not always a straightforward process to get to that point of figuring out exactly what it is that works for you.
I think a lot of people out there often will follow a diet because their friend's done well on it, and then kind of struggle through it and doesn't know why. And a lot of the time it is down to that lack of individualisation. Same with exercise and things like that. So for example, the two of us. When you were doing your 5x5 programs and to do it, you excelled at them. And I really struggled to do them, and kind of later down the line we found out the reason why. Basically me being more of a cardio endurance style on a genetic base, it didn't work for me. But when I started doing kind of more of a pyramid style workout with heavy lifting, I got most of my strength gains that way compared to following protocol use. So there is an individualisation there, and to sort of realise that you might have a foundation that's similar, so nutritionally everyone might be getting protein sources in with every meal because we know there's a benefit to that. But to what those sources are, to how much of it, and at kind of when you'll be consuming it, it's going to be a totally individual variable.
Absolutely, yeah.
Moving on, we did the second half of the exercise moves on, and this one it was around what we already mentioned, which is the female lifting myth.
Yeah.
And what we kind of will extend that out to not only females, males, I think young and old as well. I think a lot of youngsters are told to avoid lifting because the stress it puts on the body.
I mean, it really depends on kind of, I would say kind of anything under 18 body weight only.
Technically, it's still lifting.
Yeah,
using your
absolutely.
Body weight.
But the point is, they're less likely to pick up a 50 kilo dumbbell
Yeah.
and injure themselves if they're told only to use body weight only. And we know, in particular, not picking on any teenage boys, but the chances of them letting ego overtake are higher than someone slightly older. But that being said, doing those sorts of movements at any age can be good for you. We're even talking someone in their 70s, 80s just doing sit to stands in their chair so that they can stand up unaided without using their hands to lift them out of the chair. Simple things like that. Everybody should be doing some form of weight bearing exercise.
Well, I've got people in their 75s doing deadlifts, doing squats. I've got people
Overhead lunges,
pressing and things like that. So I think everyone should be getting those key movement patterns of your squat, a press, a deadlift, a pulling action, whether it's a bent over row or a pull up sort of thing, into their workouts as a must. You can vary it and change it around it to be the goal, but they've got to be in there on a regular basis just to get that benefit, that all total body benefit really from varying it up.
Next one was about snacks. Was the whole podcast about snacks?
Yes, it was eating on the go.
Eating on the go, yeah, and we wanted to go through our top 5.
Yeah, it's often, again, especially for me, I kind of
Compute?
commute to my journey about 45 minutes a day, so I need a lot of more quick and easy food to have, and often the case is regular meals aren't as simple, so I need something I can eat with my hands. And a lot of people, when they're busy, they'll kind of use this excuse saying, no, I can't eat things like that because I haven't got time, things like that. Well, I'm kind of the walking billboard for eating on the go sort of thing. So first big one I would turn around and say is boiled eggs.
Absolutely.
Best biological availability protein source out there. Very simple and easy to make and cook and store in the fridge. Just taking 1 or 2 out a day as a nice snack. It is brilliant.
Nuts.
I was going to say not for me, but I thought you would recommend nuts as a great fat source.
Yeah.
Very satiating. We're not talking peanuts. We're not talking flavoured nuts. Where if they are, they're self-flavoured. So again, we're going down the route that you're going to personally be preparing these nuts.
Jerky.
Homemade jerky was one of my best things I've ever done. Very, very simple. You can either buy it. If you're not into buying it and want to make it yourself, just cut really thin slices of, you can do beef, you can do turkey, you can do most of the meat, but really, really thin slices. Put them on a baking tray, put them in an opened oven for about a couple of hours at low heat, and it just dries them out, and then it's homemade jerky. And again, you can flavour them as much as you want, marinate them in the bag. So really, really good and easy. I'm a big fan of using veggie dips.
Right, okay.
Getting things like homemade, what's the one you make that's amazing?
Guacamole.
Homemade guacamole. You've got homemade salsas, getting something like that, and then combining that with things like carrots, celery sticks, peppers. I can't, again, it's just anything. I keep hearing you even can create a meat dip. So basically you have your guacamole and you do chicken strips and cook them off and dip them in. So something very, very simple. I like it just because most of the dips you make have a high fat content, so it's a lot more satiating out there. And again, it's nice and quick and easy and kind of hits that spot. That was number 4. Number 5
Can't think.
Is...
I was going to say something like tin fish, but you can't eat that while you're driving.
Yeah, no, I would actually say not just necessarily like when you're driving. I'm talking more in a car and things like that. Is the tinned fish is one of the best ones. I would say for the omega-3 content of it, you want to be trying consuming oily fish daily if you can. So having tinned fish as a snack is a very, very quick and simple, easy. It's a very great portable snack as well. So if you're travelling places and you're going to be away for a while and you're going to have to rely on things like hotel food, people often recommend that taking the old tinned fish is a great alternative. So that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Cool. Moving on, so podcast number 37 now. We were talking about rituals and routines, and you're looking at the kind of the biggest routine and ritual person out there. I know there's so much benefit to my lifestyle. I love structure. I know if I plan and organise myself, I get the most out of it. And actually, I think the lifesaver that has been for me since, I say, for the last 6 months, where I've got so crazy busy with the wedding, with business stuff, with work and that sometimes I was kind of suffering and kind of living a life of chaos, and many people out there, and kind of what helped was developing a morning and evening ritual. I know you were playing around with morning rituals in terms of having cold showers and things like that, and it just creates good habits.
Yes, it does.
And kind of
Sorry,
I like
not being much help, am I?
No, you're not. And then for me, like, I kind of see it as a close and an end to the day.
Yeah, it is.
As well. A lot of times people fail to shut off when they're working with computers and things like that, and with work. So a great thing to do is have a series of tasks that you complete that ends up with you preparing yourself for downtime or preparing yourself for bed, and it can help.
Definitely, 100% agree. Next one, we were talking about favourite exercises.
Yeah.
And we decided that the squat was our favourite exercise. And I guess we're going to talk about what's kind of the best things to do with a squat now. Obviously, you know, if you've never done them before, you want to start off with body weight. And really, I don't really know where to start with this one because it's such a complex thing to describe.
Well, let's start in terms of how I would most really think of is often people stand incorrectly. So what's the best stance?
Okay, alright, so feet you want just slightly wider than shoulder width apart, toes kind of just pointing out to the side ever so slightly, and I'm talking a couple of degrees, I'm not talking...
Penguin feet.
Yeah, I'm not talking that. You know, body nice and upright, core engaged, chest up, shoulders back, all of that sort of stuff. And then really what you want to focus on doing is pushing those hips back, because your knees shouldn't really move. They should bend, but they should basically stay in place in space. They can go forward slightly, you know, we do expect them to move slightly, but the idea is to keep them back. And you're going to sit down as far as you can, basically. One of the best ways to practice this is to do it with a step behind you or something, a chair or something to sit on, box, something like that. If you're a little bit worried about being unsafe, or falling over, it's a great way to kind of train yourself to trust yourself, really. Beyond that, what I would suggest is something like a in between the legs dumbbell or kettlebell squat, then possibly up to a goblet squat. Goblet squat's fantastic for opening up the hips, creating mobility. The thing to do is to keep those knees out as far as you can. Doesn't work for everybody. If you've got knee issues or hip issues, then a squat might not be for you, but it is, I would say, probably for 90% of the population. I think it's what I want to see people doing.
Great mobilisation exercise, especially in a warm-up, I like, because it just gets things like your glutes firing, gets your knees moving, and I think I love the core elements, especially when you bring in weights. It can really, really challenge the body to turn it more into an all-rounder exercise.
Yeah.
So brilliant. What we then looked at afterwards, we did the NHS guidelines one, where we looked at what the NHS safe guidelines for weight loss was, and we kind of broke them down and kind of told you where to focus on. The one thing that we both liked from it was this whole idea of a non-food reward.
Yes.
So often we are reward-driven creatures. We always are. We like the endorphin release that we get from
achieving something and rewarding ourselves for it.
Yeah,
I guess.
So the whole idea is that if we think up most rewards, let's say a reward for another year in our life, we eat cake,
or we go out for dinner, or both.
Yeah, having a drink.
Consumption, it's all consumption based is what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
Very rarely when we celebrate do we actually do something that's health beneficial, I guess you could say.
think the hardest thing was when we were looking at these things, a lot of the recommendations were financially associated. So the kind of the rewards were trips out, were purchasing new toys or clothes and things like that. So it can be quite challenging to think of a non-reward driven financial. But maybe if you can kind of with your goal break it down into milestones, and kind of over the time, if you hit several milestones that then relates to a goal that's financial, then it's a bit more realistic rather than financially rewarding yourself every single time. But it's a nice idea in terms of just kind of to get that feel good factor in the right way. So that's brilliant. Moving on, we looked at how to assess and measure ourselves.
Yes.
And kind of what we took from that is that testing is important.
Massively important. The thing is, I mean, you know, I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier about when you change your training. Tracking and testing is so important to kind of not only psychologically keep you on track, but also give you a visual way to see how far you've come and what you've achieved. And that on its own can be incredibly motivating. And I think really that, aside from that, or just that, would be my number one recommendation for why you should do it. I know for me, although having the numbers is nice, seeing the change is the best feeling ever. And that, you know, going back to the last episode, is one of the best rewards for me.
Yeah, sometimes it is. It's the whole kind of, again, we're going to bleed into two here, but when people turn around and say, I had 6 good days and I'm going to reward myself on the 7th with a kind of a cheat meal, and it kind of defeats the purpose of like isn't the reward that you're achieving something,
exactly,
you're doing well, and is continuation of that reward enough? Is it achieving your goals a big enough reward of it? And it's kind of sometimes that should be enough for it. In terms of the like we're talking about important testing from my perspective, from a nutrition perspective, without this we don't know how to make the right next step.
No.
I think
that's it.
I think with a lot of times with exercise, people kind of think, oh no, we can. A workout can be a test in itself to see if you can then change it and achieve it again. And it sort of is, but with other elements, things like nutrition, the only way to do it is actually to look at what you're eating now, what you were eating in the past, and kind of tracking that and see if we can tweak it here and there to keep the progression going on and finding what works for you. I say with bleeding things like lifestyle, if you don't track your sleep some way or another, how are you going to try and then set something to improve it by?
Because I can actually guarantee where sleep is concerned, most people haven't got the slightest clue what's going on. They just go to bed at night, wake up in the morning, and their norm is probably a really rubbish night's sleep, if I'm completely honest. It's not until you kind of become a bit more aware of the different factors in your life that tracking becomes important. And that kind of takes us on to our next one quite nicely, doesn't it?
Yeah, we were talking about, I think it was a podcast on mobility and stretching and exercise in itself, and you said the one thing that you think everyone should take from when they're doing an exercise, and we're talking the physical act of an exercise, is to be more physically aware.
Totally. You know, one of the biggest things that exercise alone can teach you is to be more aware of your body and the way you move and the way you hold yourself. And, you know, I have seen so many people come in and I've taken them through basic exercises, and they've been all over the place. You know, balance is shot. You ask them, you show them how to do something, and honestly they don't know where to put their arms or their legs because they've never had to do it before. And that just shows me a lack of physical awareness. And after 6 weeks, they're completely different. Balance is good. Give them an instruction, they can do it completely, just because they know where they are in space. And it's something that can really transfer and translate into real life in everything that you do, because you can become more aware of whether or not you're going to injure yourself doing certain things. Of, you know, we always take the old manual handling thing as kind of one of those annoying bits of training you've got to do at work. You know, you've got to bend through your knees and lift with your back and all of that sort of stuff. But learning to do that naturally is such an important thing for keeping you in a healthy, uninjured state. So that kind of self-physical awareness is for me kind of number one, really, where exercise is concerned, because it really does just change everything. But yeah, so what was next? Food.
This is where I went on the doctor.com course.
Oh
and
yeah,
learned
yeah.
more about.
It was gluten update, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was learning more. I got a chance to learn about food-related disorders and kind of shared with you my findings and kind of what I experienced on the day.
Yeah.
And I think the take-home message was that kind of removing foods is half the battle. If we know that you are, like we talked about in the last podcast, the 2 times, that remove foods that affect your health, and if you kind of wishy-washy one, don't think about it, and kind of still experiencing poor health, seriously, just give up things like gluten and dairy and legumes just for a period of time to see if they have a reaction. But one thing that was highlighted in the course, just by taking them out, would just stop the body from having any more stress put on it from these foods. What it doesn't necessarily do is give the chance for the gut to heal properly. So that's where we kind of look at kind of certain food choices, certain supplement choices that can benefit. So things that we were looking at, like bone broth, can be very helpful in terms of very high nutrient dense food that can help support the healing process. Things like glutamine, good because it was the body's natural cell lining of the stomach's fuel, so it helps with growth. Things like curcumin and omega-3s for controlling inflammation, and one of the ones which was kind of interesting one that I've kind of never heard before, but again, if you've got dairy intolerance, it wasn't as good, was what's the constituent of milk, breast milk?
Oh, you mean oh, damn it! Because it's the first milk produced just after birth, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's colostrum.
Colostrum. Yeah, close. Got B. So
yeah.
Colostrum. That can actually be very good as well, just because of the immune function that it normally has in it. It can actually support the healing process in the body. So what it sort of demonstrates there, that again, that's not kind of like gold standard for everyone, that they are good, but everyone's individual. As we already mentioned, there might be a different route that you might need to go down to heal your gut. But it was the evidence that there needs to be both prevention and healing processes going on. That's good.
Absolutely. Next was the personal support team.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and really the take-home message from that was, if you're going to achieve anything in life, then there are plenty of people around you who can help you. And to seek advice and seek support, because you wouldn't build a house without asking professionals. You wouldn't do it from scratch without going through that process. So if you want to make a change anywhere in your life, there are people out there who can help you.
I'd say he's kind of seeking professional advice from people, and I know kind of your mate thinks he is a self-made trainer and knows everything about exercise. But the interesting thing about exercise is we're trainers not because we like exercise, we're trainers because we like to help people, and we understand that the actions that happen are kind of closely linked to your health. It's quite shocking that in 6 weeks' time you could be responsible for someone's life like this, and the horror stories you hear from people that come to us.
Another thing I just want to quickly point out is that your mate in the gym hasn't spent £20,000 to £30,000 on their education. We have, and that makes us a bit more of an authority on the subject than they do.
Yeah. So what we say is go. We're talking anyone in any walk of life. If you're looking to do something, get advice from people that kind of dedicate their life to it, because. And especially, it's a great kind of benchmark to know who's the right person to pick. You want to pick passionate people about their field, because they're more likely to be people at home that are learning and pushing themselves further to develop. So seek advice from the right people.
Yeah.
After that, we again, the first box we did was fitness testing. This was the best ways to track and measure a kind of health.
Yes.
And kind of our take-home message from that podcast was that the best way to track kind of shape change is through kind of things like clothes size or circumference measurements. I know a lot of people
throw away your scales, basically.
Seriously.
Actually, I, to a certain degree, I don't agree, but only for those who are morbidly obese. You know, seeing that sort of change on someone who's maybe 25, 30 stone isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it's going to motivate them to keep going. Whereas someone who's maybe a size 14 and wants to be a size 10, you're better off using those circumference measurements or clothing.
It's kind of an interesting thing. If I would actually take the clients that I've experienced, those that are kind of near the 25, 30 stone, actually don't care about assessing themselves as much, because they know where they're at. They don't need to be told by someone else that they're large, that they're overweight, they're obese. They don't want to hear it. They kind of want to focus on what they need to do to reverse everything. And the interesting thing, that's kind of when I talk about goals with people, that's the kind of things I focus on, is kind of, this is, I ask when people sort of visualise your goal, I never get the story of someone standing on the scales telling me they're seeing their number that they've reached. It's kind of them doing a certain activity, wearing a certain dress, like you say, an emotional link that they're kind of saying that they're feeling. Again, I had confidence the other day that someone wanted to feel confident, and they turned to me and at the assessment, when we went through the results of the numbers, she says they don't actually mean anything anymore. I just feel confident about myself again, and that's where you want to get to. We understand, and that's why we track and measure at the start, because we know it can be very supportive to know the decision you're making. But at the end of the day, constantly looking at a set of scales is not going to help you lose weight. Where you need to focus your energy on is the actions that will give you that end goal, whatever that may be.
Next one, was that work-life balance?
No, I think...
wasn't time management.
No, I think it was about choices. I think looking at that is kind of often... it's nutritional myths. I think it was around that. Like often one people make a mistake, then it becomes a day, then it becomes a week, and then that's it. It's the end of the world. I think, like anything, we talked about that taking ownership and accepting your choices in the past podcast. But what we want to focus on is actually implementing the change after that now. And I think that is very key to achieving something. Kind of that kind of expression, I've fallen off the wagon, or on the horse, sort of.
Don't get me wrong, actually, at times certain things happen in life that will throw you off track, and for an extended period of time, you know, it will happen. The thing that changes how much that impacts you is whether or not you've planned for it. And actually that takes us quite nicely into our next one.
Well, it was my that was because the podcast before that was when I was away on my honeymoon. This podcast was about my honeymoon and how I actually achieved some shape change and some performance results, and kind of I always turn around and people must call me a boring old sod for doing that, but the simple thing is I had a strategy, and it wasn't that I did not enjoy myself, it wasn't that I didn't drink, it wasn't that I didn't eat food that I wanted to do, it wasn't that I didn't go out and do things I wanted to do, but I kind of implemented a simple strategy that kind of worked and kind of stuck to that no matter what. And I think that is it. It is no matter what you want to achieve, just get a strategy in place, whatever that may be. I think that often is more powerful than kind of having a strategy will do more for you than kind of counting your calories. Even though technically counting calories is a strategy, but you know what I mean. It's kind of actually focusing on tracking and things like that. If you've got a strategy around your actions, you're more likely to get some longevity out of it, rather than more than if you'll just focus on, oh, am I eating this, or am I exercising like that? Definitely. Moving on, we talked about kind of the psychology about change. And kind of that the one key thing to actually for change to happen and for you to achieve something long term is mindset.
Having the right mindset can really make the difference between success and failure, because if you don't go in feeling like you're going to achieve, you're probably not. And that applies to everything that you do, really. You have to believe that your actions are going to create change. I think being on board with things and making sure that you put in 100% is key, really.
This is kind of something supplementary that we kind of haven't covered on the past podcast, but it was kind of thinking about the other day. But when it comes to when people turn around and say when's the best time, like people often turn around and say like I'm going to start again on Monday.
Yeah.
Or
Just
I
start now.
don't start on Mondays. I'm going to start on Saturdays. I'm going to start on, and then I'm going to go down that route when people turn around and say I'm going to start now. I'm going to do it now. I actually turn around and say to people, actually, you start preparing now.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So you start adopting that mindset. So
Yeah.
kind of thinking about the actions you need. Start
Yeah.
planning. Don't kind of think about trying to go blind into something.
No.
Take your time to actually build into it. So you kind of are starting now, but you're starting adopting the right mindset.
Yeah.
And if that just needs a month for you to clear out your kitchen, to get the food in, to get all your utensils, to get your kind of meal plan structure going up, you can get your gym membership sorted so when you wait for your paycheck, that is fine, because that's all about building this mindset that's going to help you to achieve the success you want.
Yeah.
So definitely the key focus.
Definitely. Next one was on vitamins.
Vitamins, yeah. So we coined the phrase vitamins and vitamins, and talking about the benefits of them. And if we were to say that the most key vitamin that people should be focused on that we see as common deficiency is vitamin D.
Especially in kind of the northern hemisphere, really.
Higher up.
Higher up, yeah. So England, for instance, when at some points of the year you only see 6 hours of sunlight, and most of that you're sat indoors because you're at work. It's very little opportunity for you to get a dose of vitamin D. So
Yeah, you do get.
can cause all sorts of problems, especially psychological ones. You know, the old seasonal affective disorder can literally be turned around by vitamin D supplementation. I know from experience that it can.
And in terms of people that will say, "I'll switch to getting it from food," it's quite challenging to get it from food. So you've got your animal sources.
It's
eggs,
really hard to get a substantial amount from food.
But to get the levels you need, normally what the recommendation is kind of actually sun exposure is the best one. So 15 to 60 minutes, depending on how much your body is exposed, is what you should be trying to get on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So that's kind of.
See, the thing is, I mean, we
really helpful.
as creatures, we were designed to be outside, and unfortunately, because of what's happened, you know, civilization, we're not. And the sunlight that comes through your window is filtered, so you're not actually going to receive the benefit of sitting next to a window and getting that vitamin D.
There are also certain times of the day that the wavelengths are different, so there's actually some of the beneficial stuff. You might be out in the morning or the evening, but it's kind of middle of the day stuff that is actually has the therapeutic benefits that we need. So
on your lunch break, get out and walk for an hour. That's what we're saying, basically.
Yeah, so moving on to podcast number 49 now, so we're almost there. So we looked at kind of decluttering your life, and I knew it was something that, again, I had some huge benefit from in the 21-day book challenge I was reading. I really did a great time management, and one of the best tips is to declutter the aspects that cause stress in your life, that actually kind of waste your time. So kind of from things like it was clothes to emails, to
anywhere where things build up. Because things build up everywhere, you know. We tend to get on with life and we accumulate stuff, whether it's mental stuff, whether it's actions, whether it's clothes, books, letters on your kitchen table, or whatever. You always accumulating information, and so sometimes it's just good to clear it out.
I think it's. I'm a big fan of the kind of the 3 Ds, which is kind of, you do it now. You defer it to someone else to do it, or you destroy it.
Yeah.
Get rid of it. Yeah. So you're focusing on that thing. So when things come to you, you should be able to action them now. If you can't, then you need to choose: is it something you're realistically going to do, and you can leave it to one side and do later, or is it not? Can you get someone else to do it better than you? Just looking at those, I kind of find mail is one of the biggest people's cluttering. I would say
with mail.
So I'm not. It's one of the things. If it comes in, I open it. Then I can make a decision whether it's going to be shredded, binned, or I have a file on hand where I'm already storing these things. So it's not necessarily in any order, but it gets stored away out of sight, out of mind.
But there's another thing actually. There's another point there, because actually sometimes out of sight, out of mind doesn't work. For instance, my loft. It needs clearing out, and I know it's there, and it doesn't go away. Just because I've closed the hatch doesn't mean it's not there, and doesn't mean I don't know it's there. So again, accumulating stuff for accumulating stuff's sake doesn't always work.
Moving on to podcast number 50, we were talking about the best equipment choices to make and understanding the right ways to use them. So what we said was everyone should be starting with body weight because we know there's a benefit, but what was the best bit of equipment post body weight that you want to progress onto?
Versatility, it was definitely kettlebells, but not doing kettlebell based exercise. It was kettlebells doing conventional exercises, because actually they're very nice and easy to hold in the right ways to be able to do a lot of these exercises. So that was it really. If you want to know more about that, listen to that podcast. There was a lot of information in there. Next one.
We were meal awareness.
Yeah.
So this is the penultimate podcast for the year. We were focused on in-meal eating, and kind of the most key thing that we can advise you to do is chew your food.
Absolutely.
It's kind of the first point of the digestion process. If we don't, we can put stress on our body. If we don't really chew our food enough, we don't get the satiated effects and the communication senses. So definitely take your time, chew your food.
Once or twice, and swallowing isn't chewing.
That's inhaling.
Yeah, exactly. 20 chews really. Don't count them all, but
no, it's kind of just slow your eating down, make time for
until the food doesn't feel like it did when it first went in. Basically, that's it. Until it feels like it's been in a blender.
Yeah,
that's what we're looking for.
Okay, and then we're on to podcast number 52. So
the last one was 52, but we were adding in a tip, aren't we?
Well, yeah, that was it. For this is kind of a 50-second two-parter.
Yeah.
We were trying to think, looking back over our 51 tips, what is the best tip we can add to this? Amazing 50. So if you were to change one of these once a week, you will be an amazing point of health further down the line. So what could 50-second be? So we thought it's the one podcast here we haven't really talked about, which is activity, and the best activity you can do is
walking. End of. We were built to walk. We are built to run too, but not long distance running. We're built to sprint because of our big, powerful gluteal muscles, which is our bottom muscles. They're very powerful extensors, and they're used for walking. We are bipedal creatures. We walk on two legs. We are meant to be up and about, and the more we can be up and about, the healthier we'll be. That's it. Simple as that.
I think for some people, especially with severe nutritional distress or severe beginners, that walking is the first step of your exercise journey. Yeah. And you shouldn't even think about joining a gym or think about doing certain exercises
until you can walk briskly for an hour.
I know some people recommend if you're not getting in at least 20 minutes a day, they won't take you on board.
No,
because they say you should be walking first and then supplementing with exercise. And we know in this crazy life sometimes it's not possible, but what we definitely feel that should be done is a regular walking throughout the week.
And it is walking for just walking. We're not talking about walking from your car to your office. We're talking about getting out from the norm and having a walk. Something where you can de-stress, where you can not think about work, not think about the stresses of life. It is a dedicated walk. But it can be done in 2 sets. You can do two lots of 10 minutes. You haven't got to do it all at once. It's just moving. So that's it.
Brilliant.
That brings us to the end.
So that is the end of the second part, which is typically our 53rd podcast, but our first year of recording. You can, again, you're hearing this on the audio, but if you kind of want to see this, we actually did a 2-part video cast recording on YouTube, so go check that out. And check out all the brilliant information we put up, whether that's on our website, www.eatrightmove.co.uk. You can visit all our other
social media stuff, so we've got Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest,
and YouTube.
And you just search for Eat Right Move and you'll find us on there. Failing that, type it into Google and you'll also find us on numerous different media there too. So
we'd love to get some feedback on the 52 podcast, on the videocast. Tell us whether you liked these last two, so you can do that by leaving a review on at the bottom of the YouTube clip, or you can even leave a review on iTunes for us. It gets our message out to more people, so we definitely benefit it. So more people can hear our podcast, and our next podcast, which will be episode 54, which we're doing on minerals.
Yes.
So,
I thought you meant date then, and I was like, well, we're doing it next week. But no, minerals.
So we're going to look at, we did a 2-part micronutrient one. First part was on vitamins. We're going to finish it off next week with minerals and how more people are deficient in them than they think, and how it is a minefield.
Absolutely.
Trying to balance this out.
Yeah.
So yes, that'll be next week.
Yeah.
Listen to after the end of the clip. There might be a little bit of a blooper for you, so check that out.
Lee.
But
Excellent.
remember to eat right and keep moving.
Excellent. See you later, guys.